Every time someone asks for horror recommendations online, the same movies come up over and over again. And sometimes that's fair. Some of them are classics for a reason. But I also think people recommend a lot of horror movies for the wrong reasons.
So you're a horror fan?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a Serbian film?
Once. I'll probably never watch it again,
Don't be dramatic. It's really not even that bad.
Thank you very much to this person who commented recommending I do this type of video. So I made a list of 3 different categories. The popular ones that actually deserve the praise. The ones people recommend purely because they're disturbing. And some horror movies I think deserve way more attention. Popular recommendations. First up, the obvious ones. These are the horror movies that everyone recommends constantly, and honestly most of the time they're right. Hereditary. Yes, everyone talks about Hereditary, and yes, it does deserve it. It's one of the few modern horror movies that actually feels oppressive the entire time. It's a strange, different type of horror. It's suffocating, which is an interesting adjective to describe a movie I'm recommending. There's this constant sense that something is deeply wrong and no one in the story can stop it, and you're just forced to watch and figure out all the mysteries alongside the powerful stack of characters. It's also just incredibly mean in a way that horror doesn't allow itself to be anymore. Midsummer. Yes, here come the Ari Aster glazing comments, but Midsummer still works for me. For one, it's horror in broad daylight, which is extremely hard to pull off, but somehow makes the whole movie more unsettling. And over time, it turns the bright and beautiful setting into something uncomfortable. There are also a few scenes that were cut from the theatrical release that only exist in the director's cut, and these take place during the night instead of the daytime. The daytime itself almost becomes its own complex character throughout the movie. Get Out. Get Out is one of the cleanest horror movie scripts ever written. It's smart, it's tense, and it uses horror to talk about real things, without losing the entertainment side of the genre. It's one of those movies that manages to be both a great horror movie and a great movie in general. On your first watch, you believe you got it all figured out, and then you slowly realize you don't know how fucked up this is really going to get. The Shining. This one barely needs any explanation. It's just one of the most visually memorable horror movies ever made. Every scene feels intentional and uncomfortable in a way that sticks with you. It's also one of those movies that gets more unsettling the more you sit with it. But I do, however, understand how it might not be a movie for everybody. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The original one. Not the joke of a second one that somehow still managed to give me fucking nightmares. Even though the poster is literally a parody of The Breakfast Club, which is a crazy contrast. Anyway, this movie still feels chaotic and gross in a way that a lot of modern horror doesn't, and most of the time isn't capable of achieving. And the based on a true story, Beginning was one of the very first movies I saw to ever do that, so it really did stick with me. Admittedly, I did watch this movie when I was a little bit too young to understand fiction and what was make-believe, but the rawness is exactly why it still works. No one should watch these recommendations. Now, this next category may be a little bit controversial. These are movies that get recommended all the time, but usually only for one reason. Because they're disturbing in a way. And personally, I think horror can do more than just shock you. Green Inferno. Green Inferno mostly gets recommended because it's extreme. And honestly, that's kind of the whole experience. It's not nearly as awful as the rest on this list, so if you're gonna watch one of them, watch this one. There's not much tension or atmosphere, really. It's mostly just brutality for the sake of brutality. But there's technically a followable story, I guess. More than most of these movies. Human Centipede 2. Human Centipede 2 is another movie that people recommend almost entirely because it's extreme. The first Human Centipede, at least, had a specific but weird concept and a very specific tone. The plot of the first film honestly isn't bad at all. It's something almost realistic that could happen, which makes it overall sickening to watch. The second one basically just takes that idea and pushes it as far as it possibly can, just to be more disturbing. It's filmed in this grimy, black and white style. The violence is way more graphic, and the whole movie feels intentionally unpleasant. And honestly, that's kind of the entire point of it. Again, it's not really building atmosphere or tension. It's mostly trying to outdo itself in how uncomfortable or disgusted it can make the viewer, in the most extreme of extremes. So when people recommend it, it's usually not because it's a good horror movie to watch, it's because they want to see your reaction.
Hey, what do you think of this?
A Serbian film. This one has become almost like a badge of honor online. People recommend it because it's the most disturbing movie ever, but the movie itself is basically just escalation for the sake of shock. I don't think that's particularly interesting horror, if you can even fucking call it a horror movie, whatever. And the entirety of the social commentary angle that the director was trying to narrate is literally nothing more than a pretentious excuse for an otherwise grotesque and unwatchable film. It's gross. Don't watch it. The Girl Next Door. This one is just miserable. It's based on real events, which makes it even worse. And it doesn't really transform that story into something meaningful or insightful. It just becomes extremely uncomfortable and suffering. That's all I really have to say about that movie. I really did not enjoy watching that movie. I didn't enjoy watching any of these. Okay. I Spit on Your Grave. This one is a little bit more complicated because it technically is a revenge film, but the way the violence is handled makes it feel more exploitative than empowering a lot of the time. And again, it ends up being recommended mostly because, again, people just want to see a reaction to it.
No, my tribal chief, I can't do that!
Real recommendations I don't see enough. Now, this is the section I actually care the most about. These are horror movies that I think deserve way more attention than they actually get. Hell House, LLC. This is one of the best found footage horror movies in years. I love this movie. It worked for me. Really well, actually. It understands something really important about horror. Build up. Most of the scares are quiet, and slow, and genuinely creepy. And if you're someone who likes haunted house horror, this one is incredibly effective. Even if that's not your normal style, I would still recommend this movie. A Classic Horror Story. This one is a little weird, but in a good way. It's fun, bear with me. It starts off feeling like a traditional cabin-in-the-woods horror movie, and then it slowly twists into something else. It's very aware of horror tropes without feeling too much like a parody of them. Cam. Cam is one of the few horror movies about internet identity that actually understands the internet to an extent. It's unsettling in a psychological way instead of just relying on jump scares. And the concept alone is pretty terrifying if you think about it for more than a few seconds. This one is a little weird too, but this is my list, so I'm putting it in. Oculus. Oculus is criminally underrated. I remember when this movie first came out. It plays with memory and perception in a way that makes the whole movie feel unstable and untrustworthy. You're never fully sure of what's real and what isn't. And the ending is just fucking brutal. Gerald's Game. This is another one that proves horror doesn't need a big cast or elaborate setting. Shout out Stephen King. You are a real one.
Stop saying stuff like that. You're not supposed to say that kind of stuff.
Most of the movie takes place in one room.
And it becomes this really uncomfortable psychological spiral that gets more tense as it goes on. Carla Gugino is absolutely fabulous in this film. Her performance alone carries, and I really hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Now this one is a good example of how much you can do with a simple premise. Almost the entire movie takes place in a morgue, while a father and a son perform an autopsy on an unidentified body. And as they start examining her, things just keep getting more and more unexplainable. What I like about this movie is it isn't very controlled. It doesn't rely on constant jump scares or chaos the whole time. It slowly builds the perfect amount of tension throughout its runtime. The setting is very claustrophobic, and the mystery keeps expanding. By the end, it turns into something genuinely creepy. It's one of those horror movies where the concept alone carries so much of the fear. I'm honestly surprised more people don't recommend it. If you've never heard anything about this movie, don't look up anything beforehand. I remember watching this movie when I was younger. My parents were out, and my friends and I sat in the living room looking for something to watch. We ended up landing on this, and for some reason, it really did affect me. The Platform. The Platform isn't traditional horror, but it's definitely disturbing. Just reading the synopsis is enough to make anyone uncomfortable. It's very bleak and very direct about what it's trying to say, and it does stick with you. Funny Games. Now, this one, in all honesty, not a fun watch at all. So, Funny Games is basically a movie about the audience themselves. It takes all the usual home invasion horror tropes and then slowly dismantles them right in front of the viewer. Some throwing all rules of movies out of the window completely. The movie constantly reminds you that you're watching violence as entertainment, and it does it in a way that's really uncomfortable. It tries to remind the audience that actually there are no rules. This is fiction, and fiction can break as many rules as it wants. This is unsettling in the most deliberate of ways. It's not a movie you watch for traditional scares, it's more like psychological torture for the viewer. which is up to you if you want to subject yourself to it or not, for the sake of art. But if you like horror that actually challenges you a little bit instead of just trying to shock you, this one is definitely worth taking a chance on. I'm adding another movie I didn't have in the original script at the end here because I really, really enjoyed it. I actually just got back from the movie theater from watching it, and I just had to mention it. It's a brand new movie that just came out called Undertone. The marketing behind this movie reminded me a lot of the marketing done for Longlegs. You know, this is the scariest movie of the year, maybe even the scariest movie ever type of marketing. The marketing for Weapons was kind of like that too. But anyway, something that made this one in particular a little bit more different and more creative was their overall use of sound. The use of audio in this movie really, really works, and it was pretty terrifying, especially in the movie theater. It was quite an experience. Another thing I really loved was the directing style of some of the shots. Putting the protagonist in the far corner of the screen while also having a dimly lit hallway in the same frame always works. You're wondering if you're actually seeing something in the darkness or if your brain is just tricking you. Longlegs also did this, and it worked really well. It kind of reminded me of Skinamarink too, mostly the very end, where there is this very, very grainy picture of what we're supposed to fill in as a face. But the strongest part of this movie was no doubt the sound design. It wasn't afraid to be invasive, and it was, in the best way. And one part of the movie that was actually pretty cool to me is the main protagonist Evie and her podcast co-host Justin talk mainly about creepy things they find online. That's the whole premise of their shared podcast. In an episode prior to this one, they talked about a cursed video. It was a video that supposedly caused multiple people to kill themselves, I think. I'm not sure. I literally just got back from watching it, and I will definitely be giving it a second watch whenever it makes its way onto streaming platforms. But the cursed video in question was a video of just a still photo of a young woman that morphed slowly over time into an uncanny valley typeface over a bright red screen. I knew right away what they were referencing because I grew up loving old YouTube horror. This video. And there is not a chance in the world I could possibly pronounce the title, but if you know, you know. Also, in the movie, the cursed video of the girl was titled, "I Feel Wonderful." And right away, I was like, this script was absolutely written by somebody who spent just as much time as me online looking up the scariest videos they could find for their own entertainment. And if they weren't referencing those two old YouTube horror videos, then those are quite the coincidences. Now this is my for fun section. The entire Saw universe. Are they masterpieces? Absolutely not. But the Saw movies are one of the most entertaining horror movie franchises I have ever seen. I love them. They're messy, ridiculous, and most of the time overly complicated. But a lot of the times, genuinely creative. And honestly, they're so fun. I love the Saw movies. The practical effects alone in this movie are incredibly impressive. And I love watching the behind-the-scenes stuff on how they make everything look so realistic. Or at least as much as they possibly can. Now, those are some of my horror movie recommendations. Obviously, this is just my personal taste. So if you have horror movies you think deserve more attention, I would love to hear them.